2025 is shaping up to be the year of the AI agent as companies continue to tout the benefits of having AI-based digital labor and employees doing the mundane tasks for their employees. Is this the greatest tech disruption in the past 25 years? We're going to chat with Salesforce CEO Marc Benioff to see what he thinks coming up on this episode of Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me on the show today is Marc Benioff. He is the chair and CEO of Salesforce. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
Yeah, so let's just get right into it. You've written a couple of op-ed pieces in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times talking about the development of autonomous intelligent agents as one of the biggest transformations that you've seen in the past 25 years. That's saying a lot. I mean, what is it about agents that is just driving this beyond just another technology? Because, I mean, you and I have both been in the space for a number of years. You've seen a lot. I've seen a lot, and so what is it specifically about agents? Not just generative AI, because that was cool. But what is it about the agents part of it that is making you say things like that?
Well, you are 100% right. I've never been more excited about my job and what I do every single day for customers and what we're seeing tremendous value and the stories that we're seeing across so many industries and the ability to impact and have a positive, I would say, impression with technology on so many people. And you're also right about, the generative AI moment in ChatGPT where, it's kind of cool, super search, and you can get this kind of incredible, result out of it. But how do you translate that to business value? And I think that is also why I am so excited about agents, because we're seeing these customers get this great impact. I just got back literally from Singapore, and I was working with our customer there, Singapore Airlines. You probably heard of them. That's a great way to fly. And they are a great airline. Their CEO is named Go, and he's amazing. And, we've worked with them for years, I think for more than a decade. We've automated all the different functions of Singapore Airlines. You can imagine sales and service and marketing and all of these pieces. And because we manage so much of their data and because they're using so many of our applications, all of a sudden we said to them is, hey, let us just show you the magic here. And the magic is just turning on this agentic layer, these agents. And all of a sudden, not only do they have humans interacting with customers, but they have this digital agent. And that was pretty exciting. And to watch it happen so quickly and to see so much value get created for the customers, it's awesome. Yeah. And it's not the only example. It's just one of so many great examples right now. And I think we are at the beginning of one of the greatest transformations of technology, in recent history.
Yeah. So was it a case of you just saw the demonstration of what an AI agent can do, whether it was Agentforce, whether it was the things that you were developing, or someone else was showing you this, and then you showing that to the Singapore Airlines people, seeing it work. That then switched the light bulb, and you're just like, oh man, this is great.
Well, we've always seen this in the movies for years. Yeah,
I'm going to bring up the movies. Go ahead. Yeah,
we're talking to these agents, and they're talking back to us, and we're having this great experience with the computer. I mean, I remember, I guess when I first started programming and working with computers, probably in the late 70s and the early 80s. There was kind of this ELIZA simulated artificial intelligence, and you would be talking to it and it would talk back to you.
Yep.
But it didn't have accuracy, and it didn't have personality, and didn't reflect, all the data that my customer knows about their customer. That's where all of a sudden this turns into something very magical. And that's a powerful thought, that for a company like Singapore Airlines, that they now have humans with agents working together. And that also means it can operate in multiple countries, multiple languages. This is extremely important for them.
Yeah. So we had someone from Salesforce on our demo show. That's the other show that we do where people come in and they demonstrate it. So we did have a couple of demos of Agentforce, and the thing that knocked me out, and again, it hasn't been published yet, so this is a little sneak peek. But okay. he was typing an email. He made me a fake customer, and then came up with an email to me. And then after he got all the personalization stuff through the agent, he then said, and now watch this. And he types in, and now let's see it in French. And it immediately changed to French.
Right.
And that was just like, what, that was an aha moment for me, seeing, the agent do this versus, and he kept saying like, this would have been 30 minutes or this would have been an hour. And now it's in like seconds. So just the speed of it is pretty impressive too.
One of these customers that we work with is Lennar. They're in Miami, and they're one of the nation's largest home builders. And, they've always had this vision of being able to provide 24/7 wraparound customer service, be able to kind of provide cross-sell and upsell customers all kinds of things like mortgages or appliances or everything you need for your house. And at the same level, just have much greater customer intimacy. And, we've worked with them maybe for 8 years, I think, and they have a co-CEO model. And one of their CEOs, I spoke to, his name is Stuart, incredible. They love our sales app. Their salespeople are using that. And the service, we have our service cloud market. They're sending emails out with our marketing cloud. They built custom applications to manage, all of their homes. And, have a huge amount of their data in the platform. And then we're just, like you saw in the demo, just the agentic layer just turns on and there's this agent, from Lennar talking directly to their customer. And they really liked it. And the way they got there is really cool. They were at our Dreamforce conference and they went back to their Miami headquarters and they ran a hackathon where they looked at all of this opportunity and came up with 5 use cases, and they're just coding the 5 use cases out right now. And they think they're going to save a huge amount of money by doing this and offer a huge amount of value to their customers. So this is what gets me excited, which is, I think, your first question is when a customer gets excited. That's when I know we're really able to do this something, because we kind of know where all this is going. We've seen the movies, like Our Futurist Peter Schwartz, co-wrote The Minority Report. We've seen that movie. I know what the Gap store is going to look like in the future. But when I'm talking to the Gap today, I also know there's a gap, so to speak, in the future and reality, in the present reality. Yeah. Our job is to kind of start to close that up.
So since we're on the topic of movies, when a lot of people think of agents, do they think of Jarvis in the Iron Man movies, and that's what we want? We want a personal assistant who can go and do all of these things for us. It used to be that Jarvis was the example of home control in the consumer space, and that was just a nightmare because we never got that to that level. At least in my house.
I wasn't sure if you were going to say Hal or if you were going to say Mr. Smith from The Matrix.
No,
but,
I've been using no
matter
Jarvis
what it is, I mean, it's this idea that we're interoperating with the computer in some unusual, intuitive, interactive way, and it has almost a spooky understanding of who we are and what we want. We have that a little bit with generative AI, but when it doesn't matter if you're using Grok, which I love, or ChatGPT, or any of these things, Gemini, whatever. They're pretty good, but every now and then you kind of hit, like, even I hit something this morning where all of a sudden it's like, I'm like, that isn't exactly what I asked. It's like you just took a right turn. So these things are not 100% accurate. And if you can get enough data though in there and enough metadata, it can start to provide, a pretty good experience.
Yeah, even when I'm just using ChatGPT, sometimes I am impressed about how much it not only remembers about me and some of the things I've asked before, but it does seem to get better and better as it learns more. Same thing with image generation, although it does image generation so good now that I get mad at it when I'm trying to get it to fix something. I just want one little thing changed, and then it redraws the entire thing, and then I go, I don't want to do that anymore. But from a business case standpoint, can you give some other examples? Because I think talking about examples and use cases is how we're going to convince people that this is a great technology.
Well, we just gave an airline example. We talked about a home builder. Let's talk about a company that we all know, Disney. And Disney is an amazing company. But let me tell you a secret about Disney that a lot of people don't really think about, which is it's really hard for their employees to understand all their products. Because Disney has done actually a very good job in building so many amazing products, including all the parks, all the rides in all the parks, all the movies, all the shows. the cruise ships, the hotels, the vacation rentals. I mean, it goes Disney Plus. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And we've been running those Disney touch points for years. Mm-hmm. So if you go to Disney store online, or if you go to Disney Plus, or, you're even with a Disney guide in the park, you're probably using a Salesforce touch point. Somebody's probably involved. Even the Disney guides are using Salesforce and Slack. It's very impressive. But this idea that employee has to understand all those products to talk to the customer, to put together the perfect package, the perfect idea for that customer, that's pretty complicated. And when you get into an environment where someone is contacting Disney and say, hey, I want to come to Florida, I want to do these parks, I want to go to the restaurant, I want to have a reservation, but I have this allergy, but I also want to make sure that I get on this ride, I want to go to the cantina in Galaxy Edge, I want to do all of these things. There's a lot of complexity to kind of navigate this kind of hierarchy of Disney products, but the AI is so good, it's able to do that. And we can see that even in the idea, like you're with the guide, you're in the park, you're on your way to the cantina, or you're on your way to Galaxy Edge, or you're on your way to Millennium Falcon, which is one of my favorite rides in the park. And all of a sudden the ride breaks. And right now what happens is they kind of, they send out an all hands note on Slack. Hey, Millennium Falcon's down. You better, bring your guests, somewhere else. And instead, what can happen is the agent, because it has the ability to look at all the rides simultaneously, can say, oh, here's everything that Mark has ever gone on. He loves all these rides. This is what's new. This is what's working. This is where the lines are short. Oh, you should go here.
Yeah.
You should go to, Toontown. And I think that is a big change. That is that the AI can understand all the products and in real time, and what's working and what's not working and what's right for me, based on my preferences. That is pretty cool.
And it's more proactive, it feels like, than just reactive. Like, back in the day, you would just be checking the app for the ride times, and then they would tell you that it was closed, and then it was up to you as the customer, rather than someone being proactive. And
you're seeing this kind of revenue ability as well. That is, this is not just technology for technology's sake.
Yeah.
It's going to save you money. It's going to augment your employees, expand your revenue capability. It's all of these key pieces.
Yeah.
And that is, look, whether it was Singapore Airlines or Lennar or Disney, those are three really good examples.
Yeah.
And we have so many more examples. I can just keep going because I will. I just was speaking with a friend of mine, Alex. He's the CEO of a company called Pandora. And I don't know if you have, ever been to one of their stores in a shopping center or online, but they do all this great jewelry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My wife was into Pandora for a little bit. Yeah.
There you go. So anyway, it's a great store and it's really cool. And all the things that they can do are kind of actually incredible. And the company's based in Copenhagen. And so here is Alex, and he's running this global company, and they've got thousands and thousands of stores, and they're running, their commerce site. It's all on Salesforce. The commerce is on Salesforce. The stores are on Salesforce, the Sales Cloud, the Service Cloud. And again, all of a sudden, here's these agents, and they're able to offer those customers that kind of great experience. And if we can just say now to that salesperson, this is my dream, in that store, hey, this customer already has these 10 charms, but this 11th charm, which just came out, I think that they're going to really like this.
Yeah.
And you can all of a sudden offer that value and have that moment in the store with that, with that customer in real time. It's going to be pretty great.
So it's obvious that you're enthusiastic about agents, but I also want to bring up that, just like there's a light side and a dark side to the force, there's also some downsides and some obstacles that can prevent us from getting to that point. When we talk with CIOs and others that are talking about generative AI, a lot of the things that get brought up are, privacy, data security. They don't want KFC to secretly release their 11 herbs and spices. You don't want the formula for Coke getting out there out in the world. And so there's concerns and there's still concerns about hallucinations. So as we move from regular generative AI into the agents thing, those concerns are still going to be there. Like, I'm going to give you an example. Like, say you were going to buy me tickets to go see a San Francisco Giants game. And you tell the agent, go buy Keith, a couple of tickets, my treat. And then it comes back with tickets to the Giants versus the Yankees. Your agent should know that I'm a Boston Red Sox fan, right? And so you don't want to, that's just one example. We've talked about this before with flights and, what airlines I like and what airlines I don't. So, how do you get to that next hump in terms of where there's going to be trust between the customer of an agent and the agent is going to get it right? That was a long tail. Sorry.
Number one is we're going to try to achieve the highest level of accuracy possible. And right now, these agents are achieving very solid in that Disney agent was benchmarking at 93%. And
okay.
I think that for Salesforce, our own agent is benchmarking a little bit less than that right now, around 85%.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 100%. And I want to tell you why. Because in the current generation of artificial intelligence, which we call large language models, it's a word model. It's basically, it's this word, it's that word, it's this word. And based on this kind of network between all these words, it's going to kind of guess what the next word is. But because it's a word model, it doesn't have the kind of multi-sensory input that we have as human beings. That is, I have more than words at my disposal. So I have a higher level of accuracy.
Yeah.
And I think that until we get to a multi-sensory model, which is kind of the next generation of AI, or we call new world models, we're still going to have this kind of, good, but, not perfect. So one of the ways to think about this is, and it corresponds a little bit with what also you're saying around data security and sharing. So with Salesforce, we have a sharing model. And in that sharing model, it knows that I can see certain data, but I cannot see other data. Or that you are able to see that person's account balance, but not this person's account balance. That's very powerful. Now, the agent is going to operate in those guardrails. So the agent knows what you can and cannot see, and the agent has to comply with this level of security and capability. And I know in the demo that we gave you, we probably showed you how the agent is operating inside the Salesforce platform. This isn't something additive. It's not something on the outside of Salesforce. It's deep within our platform is the agentic layer itself.
Yeah.
That's the cool part. And because of that, it has the sharing model. It can see the metadata. It can see the data. That is, the data is your phone number. The metadata is telling it that's a phone number.
Yeah.
Because we have both, we're able to offer that. We manage about 230 petabytes of our customers' information. We're able to kind of translate all of that and deliver this kind of very high level of accuracy back to the customer, and couple that with the security that you're going to definitely want. Especially, it doesn't matter if you're an airline or a bank or Lennar, you're going to want to make sure that you have that level of security.
And you also want to make sure that agent doesn't offer me a $1 flight, from here to Singapore as well, right? You got to make sure that those guardrails are in place. You mentioned that, you got 85% success on your own customer service agents. Did that number surprise you when it came back with that? Or were you expecting more, or was it 85% is great?
Well, up to that point, what we've seen and published from other vendors is in the 60% area.
Okay. Yeah.
So we are getting excited that we're in the 80s and 90s on a lot of our agent deployments. And we've done more than 500,000 conversations through the Salesforce agent, which is the one on help.salesforce.com. Mm-hmm. Now that is connected directly. The customer has to log in, they're logged into their account. So right away, the agent is going to know a lot about them. It's going to have a lot of data and metadata to make the right decisions. And then all of a sudden, what can happen is it can be quite magical for the customer. Now, it doesn't totally eliminate the need for the human agent. And the cool thing about Salesforce is here you are, you're in the agentic platform, and now you want to go and have a corresponding experience with the human being.
Right.
Our human agents and our automated agents, they're blended together. So if you are just on that site and you say, oh no, I want to talk to a human agent, that person gets a screen in front of them with all your information, sees everything, and it's the same piece of data.
Yeah.
So that is very powerful.
Do you think companies get nervous about they want to get 95%? or, they're like, we can't do this unless we have, 95% accuracy or whatever the number is in their head. And then maybe their expectations are too high, or are you seeing, no, those numbers are good and we should keep doing this?
We're feeling very good about the value that we're able to offer customers right now. And I think even my own perspective, I have about 9,000 support agents at Salesforce. We have about 75,000 employees. I would say about half those agents will probably be able to redeploy into all kinds of other, revenue positions, SDR positions, BDR positions, because we've offloaded 500,000 of those conversations to the agentic layer.
Yeah. All right. So that leads me into the next kind of obstacle or thing that concerns a lot of people, and that's the whole. We got to talk about this. The whole taking of the jobs thing, and there's concerns that AI agents might just take the entire job. In your own op-ed piece, you were talking about a Morgan Stanley research report, and it says that your customers are seeing 20% to 50% cost reductions, including that were driven by savings in headcount, office space, and overhead. And headcount obviously is something that is concerning for a lot of people. Obviously, you have your own plan at Salesforce, and I think you've been on other podcasts saying that the number of support people are going to go down, but you're also hiring a lot of account executives. You've also mentioned the reskilling that you do. We can get into the reskilling part as well. But there are a lot of companies out there that might not be as cool as a Salesforce company is, and they might just see AI as, okay, this is going to reduce our headcount, and then we'll be all happy. And that's what scares the heck out of people.
Well, I think that that's right. And I think that, we have to deal with reality here. So, I think it would be a huge mistake for me to not directly address this issue head on and to really talk about what is happening. That is that, yes, this is doing, some of the roles that are being done by human beings. So we need to start to adjust. We need to look at what is really going on. I was just spent an hour with the CEO of a large robot company, and the robots and how they're working and the kind of work that they're doing on assembly lines,
right,
or retail stores and soon in your home as well, is pretty awesome. I'm sure a lot of us have seen the videos. I don't think anybody realizes how close it is.
Yeah. I covered the robotics industry for 3 or 4 years, and just saw some amazing stuff. And that was the big issue in that space was robots taking my job, and and then that just shifted over to the AI world. So how much of a responsibility should companies have in making sure that they reskill? Because sometimes they talk a good game about reskilling. Yes, we understand the need to reskill. But sometimes then the money isn't there for training programs, and they're like, okay, well, now you're on your own, and we're going to kind of lay you off and then hire all of these AI people instead. And that gets a lot of people nervous. And I just think that the industry needs to do a better job of taking ownership of that. Do you agree with that, or tell me from the CEO perspective?
I agree with that. I think for the last couple of decades, that's how I operate, where I'm constantly retraining and reskilling. I think also the K through 12 education system is more important than ever. You may know that when we started Salesforce, we put 1% of our equity, profit, and time into a foundation. We've given away more than $1 billion, but our biggest grantee is our San Francisco and Oakland public schools, because I think that it's all about education, that we're going to need to make sure people are well-trained, well-educated, they can reskill. And reskilling is another area that we've put a huge amount of money into in the last 20 years. And this is important. And yes, we're all going to have to think about this. One of my technicians here just told me that she broke her foot and she's going to go see the doctor. So, one of the things that's interesting about that is that here it is. All of our doctors are overloaded still, and nurses, since the pandemic. You talk to any of them, they're all burnt out. They can barely get an appointment with anybody. It's kind of amazing. This agentic layer is going to create a huge amount of space in the healthcare system. Right away, you'll be able to talk to the agent. Hey, this is what's going on. What should I be doing? I broke my foot. What kind of action should I be taking? How much time do I have before I need to see the doctor, before it's kind of setting in a way that is going to impact me on the long term? What are my regenerative kind of capabilities that I can use? Even me, I ruptured my Achilles last September.
Right.
And my local doctor close by here, I was in, got the MRI. He's like, all right, well, we're going to cut now. We're going to take this piece of you and put that there and put it all back together. And I'm like, no, we're not, because we're going to do a different kind of technique that, I'm very into, which is regenerative. And the idea that, no, I'm going to self-regenerate. And I was reading my friend Tony Robbins' book, Life Force, and, talks about how you can put it all back together. And I did that. And so like my Achilles is all grown back now 6 months later, and I'm walking around without a boot, and it regenerated. My doctor here is like, whoa, how'd you do that? And I'm like, yeah, I guess it's magic, but it's not really magic because of this. But just think about this. Think about if the agent is really there to help guide you and help you have those kind of decisions and make the right steps and go forward. And that in the medical environment, pre and post-operative care, and even in oncology, cancer patients who are dealing with complex treatments like chemotherapy and others, being able to have that kind of 24/7 care, I think is going to make a huge difference. Yeah. And also, I live in a rural area. Where there's like one orthopedic surgeon, let's say. And actually there's only one orthopedic surgeon. And so that person, you're constrained to everything that person knows. But what if that orthopedic surgeon is augmented with AI? So, that person, he or she is like the best any orthopedic surgeon, because they're augmented, and then that they're able to read those scans, and read those labs and look at your medical history and say, based on everything, yes, this is the action you should take. Yes, we're going to cut and put you back together. Or no, we're going to roll the dice and we're going to go take the regenerative route. That's where the AI is going to start to come into play. I'll give you an example. I'm an investor in this really cool company called Artera. And in prostate cancer, it's very complex because, you can really go a lot of different directions quickly. And you have a lot of different blood tests. You do have a lot of different scans. But urologists, they have a hard time ingesting all that data and coming up with that idea. Now, at a top medical institution, the urologist is so good, it's almost like they have an intuitive response on what to do, because it's a potpourri of solutions in that treatment zone. But with the AI, and now Artera is got an FDA approval, so that's kind of cool, that it's basically making your urologist and, your local urologist the best urologist of any urologist. And that's really important. And in the example of prostate cancer, what they found was a lot of people should not get treatment. They should go on surveillance first, for example. And that idea of whether they should or should not be on surveillance, well, that's something that can be guided by the AI. And that's why a company like Artera is so important. And then say agent to work with, that urologist, and they're doing breast cancer next. This is cool stuff. Yeah. And this is where we have to kind of get to really say, yeah, we're really getting to where we want to get to with AI. And then translate it right back down to, yes, we need to make Singapore Airlines better and Lennar better and Disney better, and yes, and I'm working with UCSF as well, which is, my big major, research hospital in my hometown.
All right. So what was your
all of those things?
Mark, was your doctor pissed off when you told him that you were going to do something different because of what the agent was telling you, or the research you had done, or this AI stuff, or was he more accepting of it?
The doctor is, I'm 60, the doctor's 58. Okay. The doctor's from Ohio. He's a great guy. His name is a great person. And he had never really heard about any of this regenerative stuff. And so, we were talking it through and looking at the scan together and on. And I've got my ChatGPT out and all this, but I also have I might have a few other little pieces of knowledge in this head as well that I might study some of this regenerative biology stuff. So then all of a sudden, I just said to him, seems to me like we should think about this regenerative path. And he said, look, I don't know anything about the regenerative path. So if that's the way you're going to go, you're going to have to really start to work with, the right person, in that area. And that's okay, but I think that idea that he didn't have to slice me open and, stitch me all back together, that my body is like, none of us are afraid that if I was to get a little cut on my hand and I put a Band-Aid on there, we know we're going to take the Band-Aid off in a week or two. It's going to be healed. Right. Our body is healing itself all the time. So it's just about what we're doing. And yes, is AI going to help with all that?
Okay, I got a couple more questions for you. Especially, do you feel like generative AI has been overhyped so much? We hear about there's this AI bubble. We hear stories about OpenAI and other companies that are spending way too much money and they're losing a lot of money. Do you think agentic AI will help this in terms of figuring out an economic model around this, or is it just going to make things even worse and people are just going to have to keep pumping money? All the VCs just have to keep pumping money in it so that they can stay around, because the technology itself is cool. I just don't want them going out of business. Yeah.
Good for you for asking this question. And I'll give you my honest answer, which is, number one is that I think that when some of this stuff was rolled out, it was kind of overhyped. And I think it should have been really laid out exactly that we were at the very beginning of what is going to be a very long journey. Mm-hmm. And because of that, when Microsoft kind of rolled out Copilot, I think it's really disappointed a lot of people, especially in the enterprise, number one. But number two, you got to look at, even with developers and GitHub, who I think were kind of having a good experience with Copilot initially. So I definitely was impressed with what Microsoft did there. But then all of a sudden, you look at where Cursor is or Surfrider is, and Copilot was just, leapfrogged. And that idea that, technology is a continuum. It's constantly getting lower cost and easier to use. Yeah. And so that's exciting. But number two is this: because we were kind of restricting our trade on our chips, I think that when we saw DeepSeek emerge, who did not have access to the best chips, that they kind of moved from this, very expensive transformer type model to this MOE model. And all of a sudden, their cost structure is a lot less. Like, our internal benchmarking is that where we can kind of feather in that some of this open source technology, which we are huge fans of, because we ourselves have contributed a massive body of work to open source AI over the last decade, as you probably know. Okay. Even prompt engineering itself was invented at Salesforce by our research team. To see the research, and also through an MIT license, which basically means you're going to get this thing mostly for free. Mm-hmm. DeepSeek was very impressive, and it changed the game, but it really exposed that some of the things that we were told was not true. Yeah. And that there is another way. But in technology, as you know, because you've studied this a long time. Yeah. There's always another way, and there's always a better way, and there's always a new way, and there's always something else coming. And that's what's exciting. And that's why we like being in technology, like from where I was first started at Apple in 1984, programming on the Macintosh and doing assembly language programming on the Macintosh, where we've gone from then to today, it's light years, and now, when we think about where we're going over the next, 30 or 40 years, the world is going to be, I would say we're not going to be able to recognize, the world that we're going to be in, unless we're looking at maybe some of the movies. And then maybe when we've seen some of those, we go, oh, that'll never happen. And now we kind of go, whoa, I already recognize this and I recognize that. Yeah, that's that. I have a great conversation with the chief futurist over at Deloitte. His name's Mike Bechtel. And we go back and forth where we just keep talking about there's the benefits of technology and there's the downside of technology, and you have to be aware of both of them, or you're gonna veer too much, to one side or the other, and you just kind of stay 100% right. Yeah. Look, technology is never good or bad. It's what you do with it that matters. Right. And when we started Salesforce 26 years ago, that was our fundamental premise. That's why we created the 1-1-1 model. It wasn't that a technology company was good or bad. It was what we were going to do with it. So we were going to have a new technology model, a new business model, and a new philanthropic model. And that's the company that we've built. And then we kind of continue to try to, do our best to keep up with, the technology changes as they've happened over the last several decades, and fight, what. Yeah, I know you're in Boston area. Clayton Christensen wrote these great books on the innovator's dilemma. It inspired me. I even wrote one of the forwards to his last books. And I just think that this is what's awesome to be in this industry. Yeah. All right. One final question for you, Mark. You did mention Salesforce been around 26 years, 1999. And according to my extensive research and my notes, which included Wikipedia and ChatGPT, you and your co-founders were at the demo conference in 1999, because
we own the demo brand, and it was an event in Silicon Valley. Chris Shipley was involved. Stuart Alsop, I think, was the originator. I started covering demo conferences in the early 2000s. So
Well,
I don't remember.
Are you still an IDG company?
Well, we were up until about 3 weeks ago. We're now owned by Regent, but it's now the Foundry brand.
Here's a little. I mean,
do you remember? Do you remember being at the event? And then also,
I do.
Yeah.
And also, I was with Pat McGovern.
Okay.
Who was the founder of IDG?
Yeah.
And then we were at the airport later, and then in the line for getting on the plane, and he said, "Oh, this really seems very practical. I'd like to invest in your company." And then, he was one of the first investors at Salesforce. So it was kind of. By the way, I never missed a demo conference. And everything else.
Good.
Yeah. That was back in the day where you really had to go to the conferences to keep up what was going on.
Right. I was going to mention that you are the second billionaire that I've met, because the first one was Pat McGovern. So, because again, I worked at IDG for 20 years in the 90s and up until about 2017, and then just came back a couple of years ago to do this podcast, basically. So,
One of the great people actually in the world.
I miss him terribly, because it was just great. He would go around every Christmas and hand out Christmas bonuses,
and he knew your name.
And he knew what I did. And so I was writing the Cool Tools column, and I did the holiday gift guide. And we would always just talk about all of the cool stuff that was coming out that year. And again, just a great person. So so when you look back at the last 26 years, was it is Salesforce the same company that you imagined when you were starting, or has it evolved? And, if you had to start a Salesforce in this climate, would you be able to? Just give me one of those looking back and looking forward kind of statements.
Yeah. Well, Salesforce started in a super adverse environment where funding was highly constrained. So, we had to raise all our money, privately. No venture capitalists would even invest in the company, which was kind of amazing. And that's why people like Pat McGovern were very much, now we call them angels in technology investing. At the time, we didn't have the word.
Right.
And so people like that were there to really help me get going. And that's why I'm so grateful. And like that great story where he gave every employee, in person their Christmas bonus check. We don't really do that anymore, and knew your name, because every night before he went to bed, he told me that he would try to recount every single thing that happened during the day and then memorized every single person that he met. Pretty incredible story.
Yeah. His brain worked a lot differently, I think, than other people. I think
he funded some huge brain science programs, by the way, at the universities. You may know.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. One other thing that you said on another podcast, which really struck with me, was that you consider Salesforce as a startup, and that you still have that entrepreneurial spirit. And I think a lot of companies that get big, they sort of lose their way and they become these corporate monolith, these big things. So it was weird to hear a CEO of your stature say something like that.
We are just a startup.
Wow. Okay.
I'm just a founder, entrepreneur running a startup. And look, that's how I look at it, which is that's what makes it exciting every day. I have to tell you a funny story. Right here, in my office, I did a meeting last week with my technology executives for 3 days on product planning, and we have our Dreamforce conference coming up in October of this year. And so there's 4 or 5 things that we're working on. We talked about one of them, Agentforce, and the next version of Agentforce and all that's coming. And then the next pieces that also, that we're planning out, that are all different teams working in different areas, because technology itself is changing so much and there's so many great opportunities. Wow, it's just awesome. And I mean, we left that meeting, we call it a product offsite.
Yeah.
Completely motivated and inspired on what the future is. And it becomes an execution challenge. And that's a startup. So, we have a vision, we have our values, we have, vision is, what do I want? My values are what's important to me. Mm-hmm. I have a plan, which is how I'm going to get it. I have obstacles, what's preventing me from having it. And I've got metrics. And I also have a priority list. So it's always a crisis of prioritization running a startup like Salesforce, because even though we are public, we do have, tremendous market capitalization, and huge number of employees, and we have tremendous financials. We just gave guidance. I think we're going to do about $40.9 billion in revenue this year and about 12 or 13 or $14 billion in cash flow. I can't remember the exact number. Like big numbers, that isn't what I focus on.
Yeah.
What I focus on is customer success. And when that trip that I just made, where I was in Singapore and I was in Japan with our largest customers and talking to them, the same way I'm talking to you about these very same customer stories, that's what's really exciting to me and what gets me going, and why, I'll have a sleepless night where I'll be like, oh man, I've got to do this, this, and this. This is really cool. And this is what is exciting about being in this industry. And then when you stop doing it's like, well, your mind probably changes and you move on to something else. But we are in a zone. And like I said, I was just with this founder of this robot company, and I was looking at his robots and talking about his, because robots work on models too, but they have specialized models that are trained in a certain way using a certain kind of reinforcement learning. And to see what he was doing and to think about how big and exciting this company is going to be and what it could be. And then I thought to myself, God, why didn't I meet this guy 2 years ago when I could have like put in money in the seed round? And so that's, we're in an awesome industry, and that is and we are on the shoulders of Pat McGovern and also all those great people who ran the Agenda conference and the Release 2.0 conference and the demo conference and all these things that kind of set the tone. And most people don't know about all those things that happened way back in the Wayback Machine.
Right.
But in the Wayback Machine, a lot went down.
Yeah.
And it was an awesome moment.
Yeah. It makes me feel old a little bit too when we bring up a lot of the things that happened 25, 30 years ago, or someone brings up a 1980s PC and is like, yeah, I was working on one of those too. But it does make me feel old. But I was 15 years old and I was working in a jewelry store in high school, cleaning cases and washing the floor. And then I walk across the street into a Radio Shack store, and they had this TRS-80 Model 1 computer, and it was $499. And I would sit there and I'm like, how does this work? And the guy behind the counter goes, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I'm going to figure this out. And then I started writing BASIC. I'm like, what is BASIC? And there was no teacher. There was no books. And you were just kind of trying to figure it out. And then eventually, within, I would say, a year or two, we were able to move into these next generation processors, and 6502 processors and Atari 800s and Commodores and Apple IIs. And then the show was on at that point. Then it was like, whoa, I'm using player missile graphics to write an arcade game in assembly language. Yeah, I'm like 16 or 17 years old. I'm like, this is fun. Yeah. Like, let's go. My dad had a TRS-80 color computer, and you would connect it to your color TV. And then I programmed a bunch of things. And then once the IBM PC came around, I started programming things. I had printed out a program that I'd written when I was 15 or 16, same kind of thing. I was doing like a dice football type game. And I look at the code now and I go, God, Keith, you were so smart at some point. Where did this all go? Like all of that stuff in my brain went, and I think it was when I went to college, and in college pushes some things out of your brain. And so, yeah.
Now all you have to do is just go to your AI, your Gemini or Grok or ChatGPT and say, hey, give me 5 lessons on how to write in BASIC. It'll all come back.
Yeah, I hope so. Mark, I'm way over on my allotted time. So again, I apologize for that.
It's been my pleasure. I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, so listen, the next time.
I'm sure I'll have more great stories. I mean, we didn't even get to talk about Heathrow Airport or Pfizer.
You've got a lot
of other amazing companies that are doing so many cool things with Agentforce, and it was great to spend time.
With when the next big thing comes after agents, we'll bring you back on and we'll talk about the next big thing after that, because there's always evolving, right?
Anytime, always available to you.
All right, thanks, Mark.
It's great to be with you.
That's going to do it for this week's show. Please like, subscribe to the video, comment. Do everything that you're supposed to do. If you're watching us on YouTube, just do all that stuff. Thanks again, and join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.